Jamal, let me begin with you. We just saw, and many of our viewers saw, a version of what's going on in the Middle East that most Americans do not get to see. How important, media is always played by both sides in a war. How important is what's coming out on the media? How important is it in this war?
Well, I think it's very important, and I feel sometimes the media is disconnected. You know, I mean, I'm talking about the U.S. media vis-a-vis the Middle Eastern media. At times, you see the same thing. You know, you're seeing the shelling, the war, the destruction, but the real stories, like the casualties, you know, today, for example, let's take today, the focus has been on the evacuation of the Americans. Yeah. I mean, this is like the big story. We have, I think, 10,000 Americans were evacuated, but in fact also you have close to 500,000 Lebanese made refugees, and this is what was going on in the Middle East. Another forgotten story, and this is a real important one to what led to this conflict. It is what is going on in Gaza. You don't see any coverage, or hardly any coverage, about that. And for those who have watched Mosaic just a few minutes ago, they saw a pretty grisly story. You know, they shot right at the hospital after an Israeli attack, and people amputated. And of course, there is a major difference in the culture of television watching, where here we tend to watch a sanitized war, and the war there is totally different. And I'm sure, you know, I want to put that forward to our guests about what is going on in Palestine and Israel. Do you think this war on Lebanon overshadows everything else?
Well, if you want to know the truth, Jamal, I think that this war in Lebanon is really a war about Palestine. I think fundamentally what's going on here is Israel is trying to show that there is no way to oppose it militarily in the region. It is trying to destroy Hezbollah. Hezbollah was the organization, it has to be remembered, that fought a successful war a guerrilla war against Israel while it was occupying Lebanon.
But that was not about Palestine, was it?
It was not about Palestine, but Hezbollah has, I think, inspired people throughout the region to the belief that there is a way.
If we can do it, you can do it.
Exactly. And so I think this is an example that Israel now wants to show is not true, is not valid. It's a model that cannot be pursued by anybody. And it wants its military reputation to be restored to its former state.
Michael, how much of what's going on now is for public consumption, is for media, is for opinion? Is that a key element to what the sides are thinking about?
I think it's absolutely a key side. I think that there are differing layers to this conflict, and one layer is the one you just alluded to, the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Another layer is the conflict over whether there will be an Israel at all, and another layer is the conflict between Islam and the West. And this Hezbollah attack and Israeli response has an element of each of those. And then there's yet another conflict, which we've really talked about rather indirectly, and that's the conflict for ascendancy in the Israeli political system on the one hand, and in the Arab and Islamic world on the other hand. And that's the part that I think the media misses the most. I don't think the media captures the degree to which these actors are moving not so much against their avowed enemy, Arabs versus Israelis, but rather against their internal enemies. Yeah.